Hey PC World fans, Adam here to hijack Android Confidential from Mike Simon and tell you that Google's new Night Sight isn't that special. Let me explain. So first off, I do want to say that Night Sight is awesome, and under the right circumstances, it can take great photos. The promise of long exposure computational photography is something that should definitely be available in phones, so I'm not arguing that it shouldn't be there. I'm just here to tell you that it's not that special. So the first reason is that it's not new. The idea of long exposure photography has been around a while in smartphones, but the idea of long exposure computational photography, which Night Sight is also not new. Earlier this year, I covered that feature in Huawei's P20 Pro in Last Cam Standing, and we'll be covering it even further in Huawei's Mate 20 Pro in an upcoming episode of Last Cam Standing. But I can already hear a lot of you saying, oh sure, it's not the first, but it's the best. And that brings me to point two, is that it's not always the best. In the testing I've done so far, I would say sometimes I prefer the night mode on the Huawei phones as opposed to Night Sight on the Pixel phones. There are certain circumstances where Huawei's shot retains highlights better, and not to mention that the Google photos are definitely noisier. So if you really start to zoom in on some of these photos, they really break down. And Night Sight shots don't end up looking natural to me, and there's one reason why. Night Sight photos sometimes don't look like they're taken at night. They almost look like they were taken at daytime, which is not the case. I think in some circumstances it goes too far and kind of loses the context. I want a better version of a dark photo, not a daylight version of a dark photo, if that makes sense. Which brings me to my last point, which is that it should really only be used under certain situations. I tend to think of it as a last-ditch effort. Like there are times where you just wouldn't get a shot unless you turned to night mode. But does that mean you should use it in the daytime, or that you should use it when shooting people, or that when you should use it when shooting moving objects? No, because it's not necessarily going to be a better photo. Do you really expect yourself to be at a bar with a bunch of friends and say, hold on, let me switch to night mode, which is a separate mode and takes time to go into, and then also say, now hold your pose for about 5 seconds, so that we don't get a blurry photo. It's just not realistic. Maybe we'll get to a point where it's not a separate mode and it's just a choice that the auto HDR makes within the normal mode, but we're not there yet. So it's something, like I said, that I think you should just rely on in extreme situations. But of course, I want to hear what you think, and I will be doing further testing in the next episode of Last Cam Standing, so subscribe to check that out when it comes out.